everybody. We're going to learn how to factor trinomials. That's what these are called because it has 3 terms. So we call this trinomials anytime there's 3 terms. Okay? Trinomials. So the steps for factoring success, there's 8 of them here. But basically you just have to think about this box here. And originally, remember, our ultimate goal is to get to the end where we write the numbers in the parentheses like this. And whatever was in the parentheses, remember, was on the outside. And then this was our answer originally. And so what we did was this x squared, this first one, this one went in this box right here. And then the plus 6, it went in this box right here. So you might want to get some highlighters or something, whatever you use. And we're going to go ahead and highlight those 2 things. So the first term goes in this box. And the last term goes in this box. Okay? And so the middle term, that one is made up of adding these 2 boxes right here. Remember when we were doing this, we would add this box together with this box. So that middle term, that's supposed to add to that negative 5x. Okay, that middle term is supposed to add to that negative 5x. So those 3 parts go in this box. The first one goes here, the last one goes here. And then you're going to start thinking about the outside of the box. Okay? So the outside of the box, in this case, this is a simple trinomial. But I'm going to show you the steps for a really difficult one. So that way, if you can see it on this easy one, that way the next time we go through this, you'll know what you're doing. So step 1 says to multiply a times c. So I'm going to multiply 1 times 6. So a times c equals 1 times 6, or just 6. That's going to be my t-chart. And on your t-chart, it's positive 6, so make sure you put positive at the top of your t-chart. Okay? Then you're going to say 1 and 6, 2 and 3, and that's really it for your t-chart. Now remember, you can use your calculator to do this by going to y equals and typing in 6 divided by x. Okay, that number at top, you could divide it by x, and that'll get you your list of all your factors. Okay, when it's 6, I don't really need to do that on my table. Okay, now, the idea is we want them to add to negative 5. So how can we get positive numbers to still multiply to positive 6, but add to negative 5? So remember, if the last term is positive and the middle term is negative, then you could also say that these 2 multiplied together could both be negative, right? To get a positive, you could have, so this could be 2 positives, or it could be 2 negatives. Let's say instead of the plus sign, let's say positive. So if it's positive up here at the top, your answers down here could either be positive 1, positive 6, or it could be negative 1, negative 6. So to get my negative 5, I'm going to say negative 2 plus negative 3, and those together make negative 5. Okay, so that was step 2, which 2 numbers add to b, to the b term, the yellow term. Now you're going to draw in a box, and you're going to fill in ax squared and c. Okay, so ax squared we said was orange, and c was blue. Okay, and I showed you how to do that before we did anything. And that can also always be your first step. You don't have to multiply a times c to start with. You could do what I just did. Now you're going to put the 2 numbers you circled in your t-chart as the x terms, so the yellow terms in your box. So negative 2x and negative 3x. Okay, does negative 2 plus negative 3 make negative 5? Yes. And so now you're just going to find the GCF of each of those factors. Okay, you're just going to find the GCF of each of those parts on your box. I'm trying to find a small piece of paper so I can. Okay, so we're going to start with the top one. So what's the most common factor between x squared and negative 3x? It's just x. And now up at the top of our box, we've got x times x makes x squared, and x times negative 3 makes negative 3x. So I always cover up the bottom box first. Now we just have to figure out what number goes right here so that we can get our positive 6. So this number, negative 3, and this number here, we're going to multiply this times this to get our 6, right? So I would say it's 2, and it has to be negative. Negative 2 times negative 3 gets you negative 6. And then you just take the numbers on the outsides and you write them on your parentheses. So x minus 2 and x minus 3. Comes from the outside. Okay? This comes from the outside. Okay? Alright, so that was a very simple one that you probably could have done without doing all this extra work. You probably could have filled in this box without doing a t-chart. But let's talk about on the inside. Okay, so let's look at example 2. So the first thing I like to do is say, okay, well, I need to put these numbers in the box. So remember that the 12 goes in the first box, 12x squared goes in this box, and negative 2 goes in the last box. And I'm highlighting it just so that I have it for later. Now you're going to say that these two boxes here add to what? 5x. They add to 5x, that middle term. Okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and make a t-chart. So to make the t-chart, you're going to do a times c, and 12 times negative 2 is negative 24. 12 times negative 2 is negative 24. So I'm going to put negative 24 on top of my t-chart. The only way to get a negative is to have one positive and one negative. So if the top of your t-chart is negative, then that means you're going to be subtracting these numbers. Okay? So 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Does 5 go into 24? No. And then 6 and 4 again. Okay, so I want to get them to be 5x. So remember, if one is positive and one is negative, then that must mean I'm subtracting. So go through and subtract. 24 minus 1 is 23. 12 minus 2 is 10. 8 minus 3 is 5. Oh, look, that's what I'm looking for. Now, in order for it to be positive 5, I want to do positive 8 and negative 3. Okay? Positive 8 and negative 3. So those are the numbers that I write here. 8x and negative 3x. Does that make sense? Alright. Maybe I should highlight those yellows so that you know that they go in the table there. Okay? Those are the numbers that go in the table. Okay, so now remember, you take your little piece of paper. If you want a post-it note, ask me, I'll give you one. You can cover up this bottom part of the box. And this is just GCF of binomials, which we've done before. So what's the greatest common factor between 12 and 3? Well, it's going to be this 3 right here. So we're going to put 3x on the outside, and then you're going to fill in the top. 3 times what is 12? 4. So 4x here, and then 3 times what is negative 3? Negative 1. Okay? So now I've filled out the whole top of my box. Now I just have to fill out what goes in right here. So you can use either 4x or negative 1 to help you figure out what goes here. Okay, it's going to work for both of them. But I'll just go ahead right now and use the 4x. 4 times what is 8? Positive 2. Okay, and then you just check. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. And my last step is to write the parentheses. So this is 3x plus 2 on this side, and 4x minus 1 on this side. Make sense? Alright, next up, number 3. Step 1, let's fill in A and C. So this is A, and this is C. And then the middle term is what these two boxes add to. So that's going to equal x. So this is 6x squared, this is negative 12, and that's supposed to equal x. How do I fill the top of this table? I do A times C. So A times C is 6 times negative 12, which is negative 72. So it's negative, so that means I'm going to be subtracting in my table. Remember? So we have to have one positive and one negative. Okay? Alright, so 72. That's a big one. I'm going to go ahead and use my calculator. Okay? You can do it by hand if you want to. Either way. 72 divided by x. I just feel like if I do by calculator on this one, it's better because I might miss a few of them. Okay? So 172, 236, 3 and 24. Is that right? 4 and 18. Make my table a little longer. 6 and 12. 8 and 9, and now I'm done because the next one is 9 and 8. So I want it to be one positive and one negative, so in other words, I'm going to subtract in my table. So I'm going to subtract in my table, and I know to subtract because it says negative right here. Okay, so when it says negative, that means you're subtracting. When it says positive, that means you're adding. Okay, so which one of these is going to subtract to, oh, that should be 1, right? 1x. So 72 minus 1, 36 minus 2. Oh, 8 and 9 subtract to be positive 1. Now, how am I going to make it positive 1? Where do I put the negative? Do I put it on the 8 or do I put it on the 9? So is it 9 minus 8 or is it 8 minus 9? It's going to be 9 minus 8 to get positive 1. Does that make sense? So put negative 8x and positive 9x. Okay, and then you're just going to go ahead and use your post-it note or your paper or whatever you're using, and you're just going to find the GCF from the top row. So looking at that top row, what is the biggest number that goes into both 6 and also 9? And that number is 3, so 3x. Now you fill out the top. 3 times 2 is 6, so this is 2x. 3 times 3 is 9, so plus 3. And now we just have to figure out this bottom corner here. And you know, you might actually take your paper if it helps you. It might help you to go like this and say, okay, so 2 times 3 is 6, and then something times 2 is negative 8, right? I think it's negative 4, right? Negative 4. Okay, and so 2 times negative 4 is negative 8, and then you've got your 3 times negative 4, which is your negative 12, so you've done it. So now you just write out your ordered, or your, not your ordered pairs, your factors. 3x minus 4 and 2x plus 3. Does that make sense? Okay. Now all of these are saying factor and solve. So remember, if we're going to go solve them, then you're going to draw your arrows and you're going to say 3x minus 4 equals 0 and 2x plus 3 equals 0. And then you would solve each one of those equations. So we would say plus 4 to both sides. 3x equals 4, divide by 3, x equals 4 over 3. There's one solution. And then minus 3 for both sides. 2x equals negative 3, divide by 2, x equals negative 3 over 2. There's two solutions. Okay? So remember, this is factoring, this is solving. If it says to do both, then you're supposed to do both. Okay? Alright, example 4 and example 5 go back to the a little bit easier ones. So remember, we're going to need a t-chart and we're going to need a box. Okay? And let's fill in our box. So x squared goes here, positive 6 goes here, and this middle term, negative 7x, that means these two are supposed to add to that, right? Okay. So we're going to start by saying a times c. A times c is 1 times 6. So since it's positive 6, always put positive or negative on top of your chart. That's going to tell you whether you're adding or subtracting in your chart. So I'm adding in my chart. So it's 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. And I want to add to negative 7. Well, 1 and 6 add to positive 7. So how can I get it to add to negative 7? I'm going to make them both negative. Okay, so this is going to be negative 1x and negative 6x. Okay. Now take your paper, cover up the bottom two boxes. What do those two boxes have in common? X. And what goes on top? X minus 1. Then take your paper, cover up the two side boxes, and figure out what goes right here. Negative 6. Okay, and then just check. Does negative 6 times negative 1 make positive 6? It sure does. So then it's x minus 6 times x minus 1. And that's factored form. And now we're going to solve it. So x minus 6 equals 0, and x minus 1 equals 0. Plus 6 to both sides, x equals 6. Plus 1 to both sides, x equals 1. Okay. Alright, last up, we've got x squared minus 2x minus 15. Make our t-chart, make our box. Fill in the things, so x squared and negative 15. This is supposed to add to that middle one, negative 2x. Whoops, this one I should have put 7x, sorry. I'm going to put an x up here. Okay, so what are we doing? A times c, right? So a times c equals 1 times negative 15, which equals negative 15. So I'm going to put negative 15 on top of my chart. Does that mean I add or I subtract in this table? It means this time I am subtracting. So this is 1 and 15, 2 doesn't go into it, 3 and 5, 4 doesn't go into it, and now I'm back to 5 and 3. When I subtract, I want to get negative 2, okay? That one doesn't, but this one can get me 2 if I do 5 minus 3. What if I want it to be negative? Then I need to make the bigger number negative, so it's negative 5. So this is 3x and negative 5x. Now, it does not matter which box you put those in. You could switch them around. Okay, so let's start with this one. X squared minus 5x has x in common, and it's going to be x times x is x squared, and x times negative 5. Okay, and then now we're going to do this one. X times x is x squared, x times positive 3. And then we just write our factors, x minus 5 and x plus 3. Remember, this is just factored form. If you wanted to solve it, then you would have to set each one equal to 0 like we did here. Okay? Alright, thanks for watching. Have a good day.